Hello again, and welcome back to Navigational Mind. I'm Dr. Toy Oyalese, coming to you from a usually quiet corner of Kelowna, unless you count the chorus of geese outside my window, which is, unfortunately, year-round. We've been talking about the way our minds find direction, how we work with conflict, confusion, even friction inside ourselves. Today, I want to focus in on something deceptively simple, but absolutely foundational. Articulation. And I don't just mean describing things well. I mean the act of the mind explaining itself to itself. This is like turning on a much-needed lantern in a dark hallway of the self. If you remember from our previous episode, we dug into how turning mental fog into clarity starts with articulation, using language, naming feelings, drawing rough sketches of what's going on inside. Without this, direction stays, well, I want to say murky. You can feel these tugs and impulses, but it's like listening to a conversation through a wall. Noise, not meaning. The more we articulate, not just what we want, but the reasons, the contradictions, even the emotional weather patterns inside us, the less internal conflict we have. Essentially, you're giving all those residents in your mental house a way to introduce themselves. And I'm not just talking theory here. I'll tell you a quick story, a memory that still makes my face feel hot every time I remember it. Years ago, I was working as the new doctor at a small clinic in Alberta. Early 20s, barely out of med school, and my accent, well, it felt twice as strong and 5 times as obvious back then. The first few weeks, every time I'd walk into an exam room, I could feel the skepticism. No one said it out loud, but it hovered in the air. I realized the only way out was through articulation. I started naming my own nervousness, explaining, look, it's my first time here. If I seem hesitant, it's because I care about getting this right for you. And something funny happened. By articulating my inexperience, people's suspicion melted into curiosity, even empathy. Articulation softened the conflict, both outside and inside me. We can think of articulation on different levels. Emotional, naming exactly what's being felt. Structural, outlining the dynamics or the architecture in play. And directional, mapping out the leanings and intentions, even if they're faint. The more honest we are with each layer, the clearer our path through a given storm. I find, after you've gotten a little light in that hallway, after some decent articulation, the next question is how on earth do we keep our footing when the emotional weather changes? One day, everything makes sense. The next, it's a rain-soaked mess. This is where anchors come in. Anchors aren't just habits or routines. I think that gets muddled sometimes. Habits are about productivity. They optimize or automate. Anchors, on the other hand, keep us from getting swept out to sea. They're about stability, not achievement. And there's more than one kind of anchor. You've got the structural anchors. Maybe it's a morning ritual. Maybe just the rhythm of tea at 10 a.m., that kind of thing. Then you've got behavioral anchors. Little agreements with yourself, like always making your bed, or writing 3 lines in a journal, even when your world is upside down. Emotional anchors? Those might be grounding practices, favorite music, sometimes just a call to someone who gets it. And then there's identity anchors. For a lot of us, that's the bedrock. Who am I when everything else shifts? What won't I let go of? I can think of a patient, a woman living with chronic illness who had every reason to give in to despair. But she revisited her core values, being a kind friend, a stubborn advocate for her kids. Those identity anchors were her ballast. Even when pain or uncertainty rolled in, she'd circle back to those values. It didn't solve everything, but it meant the emotional storms couldn't just capsize her. That's the test of a true anchor. And look, it might overlap with habits, but its purpose is steadiness, not performance. Anchors support our direction over time. They're what you hold on to when the mind's internal compass is spinning, which, trust me, happens to everybody, even the experts. Now, once you've got a bit of clarity from articulation, and you've got stability thanks to your anchors, there's still one more layer holding things together, and that's rules. Not the kind you find hanging in a school hallway, but the internal agreements the mind makes with itself. If you think about it, these are the house rules that protect your internal coherence, especially when things get turbulent. There are a few types: boundary rules, behavioral rules, identity rules. Boundaries might sound like, I won't go down that self-critical rabbit hole past midnight. Behavioral rules could be, if I notice certain warning signs, I pause and check in. Or, I triple check before I hit send on an email when I'm out of sorts. You know, speaking of triple checking, this has accidentally become my signature rule after all these years. I always joke about it on the podcast, but it started out as pure self-defense. Early in my practice, the stress of new diagnoses, especially those tongue twisters, would make me second-guess everything. So I made an agreement. If I can't pronounce it with confidence without looking at my cheat sheet, I double, or honestly triple, check before saying it out loud. It sounds silly, but it became a pillar for my self-trust. When things felt overwhelming, that rule kept me from spiraling. Here's the key. The rules have to be few, clear, and non-negotiable. If your mind tries to keep track of 100 soft, shifting agreements, that's not structure, it's chaos in disguise. The point is to protect your coherence, especially in hard moments, by having just a few house rules the mind can fall back on, no matter what storm is raging outside. Think of it this way. Articulation reveals what's true for you. Anchors hold you steady. And these handful of clear rules, they guide your actions, especially when internal weather turns unpredictable. Altogether, they form the backbone of what we've been calling directional identity, a system for moving, not just surviving, when clarity, motivation, or certainty dry up. Before I let you go, just remember, your mind doesn't need to conquer chaos or outmuscle uncertainty. Navigation isn't about brute force or confidence, it's built on structure. Articulation gives that structure a shape. Anchors give it stability, and rules give it coherence. Hope this episode gave you a couple of footholds for the next time your mental weather turns. We'll keep building on these foundations together in the episodes ahead. Thanks for listening.